Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Brommer's blog video tutorials for DesignSpark PCB. This week we're going to look at the facility to be able to pour copper within our PCB designs. Pouring copper is a feature that is sometimes used as good practice for grounding and also for suppressing noise in a design, and this is really mainly achieved by, once we have the PCB developed, to flood certain areas of the board with copper and then to connect that maybe to, say, the ground plane in order to improve performance in those areas. So very simply, we can achieve this in DesignSpark PCB, and here today we've got an example of one of our typical circuit designs. I've turned off the bottom layers, so what we can see here is the PCB with the connector, some ICs, and here we can see the red traces which signify the top copper layers. So for instance, say if we wanted to flood this whole design with copper on the top layer, what we would look to do is add copper pour area, so a rectangle, and then simply select the whole layer. So what we've now got here is an area. If we now select this rectangle, press right click, and what we see now is an option here to pour copper. Now by simply pressing this, we're now presented with an option here to select a net, so let's say select ground, and also here we see options selected for thermals on pads and on vias, thermal spots, which we'll show you. So now that we've selected the net, we'll select OK, instantly we see the board has now been flooded with copper on the top layer. So just to zoom in here, here perhaps, we can zoom in. Okay, we just made everything go white there. Okay. What we can see here is the original traces on the design, with the spaces in between filled with copper, but we can see here that they are isolated by this isolation gap here. But to all intents now, we still have a working circuit. There are no short circuits there as such. What we can also see here, if we zoom in here, is one of the areas where we can see thermal spokes applied there all around one of the vias on the board. So very quickly you can see here, by simply going to add copper pour area, adding the rectangle, then right clicking on that box and filling it with copper, shows us a very quick way to achieve a copper pour area on the board. So if we just undo that now and remove it, so here's our original box, which we can delete now. So that was just one quick example. Now, although flooding copper can be a good thing, in certain design conditions, there may be certain areas of board that we don't want this flooding of air, copper. So what we can also include in a design is what we call the copper keep out, or the pour keep out areas. So these will be areas, if we were say to flood a board with copper, these will be areas that we would wish to be excluded from that feature. So quite simply, the process is pretty much the same. We simply go to add a copper pour area to a rectangle, and maybe we draw a little area here that I wish to keep clear of copper. What I simply do here is select it once I've drawn it, right click. Now rather than pour copper, we go to properties. Now within properties we can see here the option for pour keep out. We now tick this box and apply. When we come to flood the board with copper, this area should be excluded from that. So what we'll do is let's draw something else here that we want to exclude from the actual flooding or pouring, and we'll draw a circle here. again, let's just cancel. Let's us select, right click, properties, poor keep out, it's already remembered it, say OK to that. So we have two areas here now and here on the board. Now, if we now look to add another copper poor area to flood the whole board again, we'll start in this corner and pop all the way down here and just cancel. If we now select this box and we say poor copper, what we'll see now, once we've enabled down to ground, is that the board again has been flooded as it was before, showing the isolation between the traces, and obviously the vias that you can see here with the thermal spokes. But now we can see that this area that we specified as a poor keep out has not been flooded. Similarly, we can see here the rectangle that I drew, just by simply right clicking the properties of that poor keep out area, we can exclude it from the actual flooding. So I've shown you two examples there today of how you can simply flood a board with copper, and then also how to include poor keep out areas as well. So, and again, this works if we take a quick look here just in 3D view to finish off. Here we can see like truly our PCB with the traces. Here we can quite clearly see the copper fill. To zoom in a little bit, and obviously our two keep out areas that we specified in the design. So I hope you found that of interest, and remember there is a lot of good information within the help files that you can access very easily just by pressing F1 in DesignSpark, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next video tutorial series on DesignSpark PCB by Brommer's blog. Thank you.